Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Azure Functions live stream for March/February. We had this initially at last week. I had it scheduled because I think I promised everyone I was going to get this done in February. But then last week was just a little too crazy, so I bumped it a week. But that's okay. We're here now. And better than just being here, we have fan favorite Anthony Chu on the call with us. Anthony, you've been a part of every single webcast, much like I have. Sometimes you're on camera, sometimes you're just on the chat, but great to have you here.
Yeah, great to be here.
Yeah. I don't know, Anthony, how are you feeling? It's very sunny in Seattle today. Like yesterday was sunny too. My kids got to go to a park. Is it sunny up north where you're at, or
Yeah, it's
snowing?
a little cloudy in Vancouver. It's not too bad.
One time it was snowing in Seattle, and I asked Anthony if it was snowing where he lived, and he promptly corrected me that it does not always snow in Canada. So I appreciated that. All right, let's jump into it. If this is the first time you've joined our webcast, thank you so much for joining. We are members of the Azure Functions team. I'm Jeff Holland. I'm program manager. Anthony as well is program manager. This is a chance for us to share with you what's new, what's coming. We've got a bunch of demos. Anthony's got all the good stuff for us. He is the best in the game around this stuff. And yes, it's very good to see Anthony in front of the camera. Teams is telling me right now that my Wi-Fi is bad, but the stream is telling me that we're doing a fine signal up to YouTube. So hopefully this stays strong, but apologies, Anthony. I don't know if you see that wording on your side too. Yeah, we're pushing strong. Okay, so we'll go over some announcements. We'll say what's coming, and then Anthony's got a bunch of demos. Should we just jump into it, Anthony? Is there anything I'm missing?
Nope, let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. Oh, and as always, I see folks are pasting questions in the chat already. That's exactly what I want you all to be doing, and we will answer your questions throughout. We'll pause at little intervals. So if you have questions, things you want to know, things you want us to chat about, paste them into the chat, and we are seeing it now along with all of you. So hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Azure Functions Live for March/February. We'll probably still do another thing in March. Okay, what's new? Private Endpoint Connections GA. I don't remember exactly when this one landed. This is if you deploy your functions to a premium plan and join it to a VNet, and you want to have an HTTP trigger that can only be triggered from like your VNet address, like 10.0.0.1. The technology that you use to make that happen is called private endpoints. You can use them. They're now generally available. So use them everywhere, Linux and Windows. Great to go. Versionless key vault and auto rotation. Anthony, do you know the details on this one? I know the details, but I figured you do as well. Did you see this announcement drop?
Yeah, I did, but I actually don't know the specific details. I just know that you don't have to supply the version anymore. But actually, I would love to learn more about how that actually works. Like, how does my app know that a value has changed? Is it polling? Like, what is it doing?
Yes, great question. So yeah, that's the big one. Before, when you did key vault, you would have to pin your app setting. So like there's this cool syntax where you're like, hey, grab this application setting or this trigger connection string or whatever else from key vault. And when you did that, you'd have to pin it to a specific version of that secret or that key. It's a secret. So it's key vault, but it is a secret. The challenge with that was, like, if you go and change the connection string, you've got to now go into all of your functions and update that version to the latest. Now you don't have to include the version of the secret. You can just say, this is the secret, grab the latest. To your point though, Anthony, how it will work is that on some periodic basis, we will check for changes. I believe the docs today say that we'll give it, like, it might take up to 24 hours. So don't like make a change in Key Vault and then go refresh your app and expect that the secret's going to be there right away. It might take a little bit of time, but we will go and check for you. So that's a cool new feature that's there. Oh, this one you do know about. So some docs did land. I was pasting them some folks yesterday. And we also shipped .NET 5 Preview 5. I don't know anything. We'll be talking a bit about .NET in the what's coming as well. Anthony, I don't know what you want to highlight here, what you want to plug, if you want me to paste any links.
Yeah, so we have the docs. I don't have the link ahead in front of me. So we have the first iteration of the docs. We're gonna also add a like a how-to or quick start kind of a thing. But this is it's getting close.
It's very close. In fact, yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. I'll grab the page from the doc side. There's some really good info. What's it called? Where the phrase you'll see us being used a lot is like the ability to write Azure functions in an isolated process. And so there's a new doc in the concepts docs under languages that breaks down this isolated process. It doesn't quite have the kind of quick start stuff there yet. That will be landing very soon, but I just pasted it into chat. If you're interested in learning a little bit more of how it works and some of the capabilities, you can use this today with the preview 5 bits, but there's more docs coming very soon. So we'll get to that in a second. So hang tight for more .NET updates and news. This one you definitely know, Anthony. You want to grab this one?
Yeah, so Static Web Apps has a new configuration file now. So in the past, we've had a file called routes.json, and that file still works now, and we don't have a solid plan to actually kind of get rid of it anytime soon. But because it's called routes.json, there's 2 problems with it, I guess. One is that you can only put routes information in there because it doesn't make any sense to put anything else. And then the other is that it's not a very specific name. So we kind of we couldn't just like search your folders for it and then just be like, oh yeah, I found a routes.json here and then I can use it. And we know that this is the thing. So we kind of solved that with a new configuration file. It's got a very specific name called Azure Web App.config.json. I had to look that up because I actually forgot what the name was. But it's very specific. So we are gonna, so like, all the routes kind of rules that you're kind of used to in the past. There's a slightly new syntax for them, a slightly new way of doing kind of things like fallback route. We kind of learned a lot from the first iteration of the routes.json file. As well, we're going to start adding new stuff in there as well, things around auth and things like that. So look forward to seeing that. And then and the other thing about this file is that you can sort of have it, you can place it almost anywhere now within your app directory. So before you had to kind of make sure that it's in your kind of like your www root if it's a Blazor app, or some public folder in your React app, just to make sure that it kind of flows into the artifacts folder when you deploy it. That's no longer the case. You can just put it anywhere within your app folder. So whether it's your Blazor app or your React app, anywhere in there, we're going to search for it, and if we find it, that's what we're going to use.
That's great. That's awesome. And we've got actually a ton of updates and new stuff on static web apps. I'm even curious from chat, like of the whatever 100 folks who are watching between Twitter and YouTube live right now, like how many of you are using static web apps? How many of you maybe aren't using it and want to use it? Maybe you're not even interested and you're like, look, we don't need static web apps. But lots of good stuff there. Great feature, tons of improvements. And this next one, oh, no, the next one's not another static web app. That's coming soon. Okay, so we're going to save some of the demos till the end because we got a bunch of them and they're all mind-blowing and we don't want your minds to be blown too early. So instead, we are going to jump to community highlights. As always, you'll see that this slide has beautiful hyperlinks. You won't be able to click them on your screen. If you try to click them, it's probably going to pause us. So don't click it. But you can go to ak.ms/functions/links. There's a lot of great stuff in here. Anthony, I'll probably let you grab the first half if there's any you want to cover. And then I'll grab some of the bottom half that I was looking at too. Anything you want to call out in these top 3?
Yeah, the top 3 are all great. The one that I want to call out is that we have a new advocate in our Cloud Advocates team named Anthony Shaw, and he's been diving a lot into Azure Functions, and he's huge in the Python world. So we're really excited to have him kind of try out Functions and kind of see what he builds with it. So he's already done some pretty cool stuff, and one of them is in that episode on YouTube that you can check out.
Great. Yeah, and I saw earlier Tatsuro said hi in the chat. Like, if you have not subscribed or followed Tatsuro on Twitter, you should do that. Like, he creates some really great content and very advanced content, like very, very cool patterns. I've been using some libraries from Tatsuro for a while now, around things like getting a certificate for some apps that I have deployed, a website or something. I can't remember which one I did it for. I actually think it's I built my mom a WordPress site because she wanted to start blogging and I needed a certificate, and I was able to use his Let's Encrypt libraries with durable functions to make it happen for free. But This is a great one too on the graceful shutdown. On the bottom half, a lot of good stuff here too. Tom Hind wrote a great one from the perspective of a startup and in moving from servers to serverless. There's the full link to the blog there. Mark, who we probably shout out on our webcast, second only to Anthony himself. Mark and team are constantly at work building some very high quality content. One of them is a workshop and around durable functions. And so he has helped put together a workshop with a bit of a challenge where it's like, hey, build a durable function so that imagine that a ticket gets raised in your system. You want to make sure somebody looks at the ticket. If no one's looking at the ticket, you need to escalate the ticket. And you can build that entire flow using durable functions. And there's a bunch of material to help you actually go try that out and use the bits. So really good learning opportunity and some good material there. And then the last one from Dan Bass, really speaking of static web apps, which it looks to see like there's a good amount of folks here who are using static web apps as well. It's using Netlify CMS as well as Azure Static Web Apps to host a CMS site. So like in theory, instead of using WordPress and telling my mom to use WordPress to write her blog, I probably could have followed this blog and done it with Azure Static Web Apps and paid even less money. I have the certificates managed and the static web app stuff. So great post there, pretty cool pattern. Awesome stuff as always. Like it's a blast. There's always more content than we can fit on the slide. But these were 6. So thank you all. If you're on the call right now, if you're watching the recording, thanks a ton. And there's more. And I see Barbara's on the chat. Barbara yesterday was in like an Ignite Ask the Experts team. We've got a great community. Anything else you want to add, Anthony, on this slide?
No, not really. But I'm really looking forward to seeing your mom's blog on this slide next month.
It's great. I should plug it. She really wants more clicks. It's pretty niche. It's she's. I'll tell everyone what it is. Maybe she'll be excited if she gets it. If you go to maxingmarriott.com, like Marriott Hotels, she is super into timeshares. And she was like, I want to tell people all these tricks and tips I have learned from doing like timeshares. And I'm like, okay, that's a very boomer thing, Mom, but that's okay. And so it's a great way to spend your time. So I bought the domain, I set up the site on Azure, and I send it to her. And I'm blown away. I think like 3 times a week, she'll post a new blog post of like, here's how to do vacation planning. And she's like, she watches her Google Analytics screen and she sends me screenshots. She's like, I got 30 people. So anyway. Yep. And I need to move her to static web apps, though. I should have saved that for the Mother's Day episode. What's coming? Yes. Okay, we've already had a few questions on this one. Anthony, you can kick us off here. I have some Marriott's music. Maxing Marriott. Maxingmarriott.com. 2 T's. Click all the ads. There's actually no ads. Anthony, anything you want to share here with the .NET 5 stuff, and then I can chime in as well.
Yeah, so so on the last slide there, we saw that we put out preview 5 of our .NET 5 or .NET isolated worker support. And pretty soon we'll be also putting out like almost like an RC release, and we're pretty close to actually, declaring this thing production ready. So along with that, you'll see actually like we already have a new version of Core Tools that rolled out that already has that support, as well as Azure CLI, so you can actually create these apps in the cloud. And pretty soon, VS Code, our extension, will also support creating, debugging, and deploying the app to Azure.
Yeah, this is imminent, and I know, and rightly so. There's been a lot of anxiety and like pressure to say like, look, we really want to be using .NET 5. What's taking so long? It is. I mentioned this on some of the GitHub issues too. It is not from a lack of want, and not from even a lack of planning. It's just been a really intense year for our service in 2020 with a bunch of growth that put us a little bit further behind than we wanted. And we've learned a lot from it. Like we are days away from having some of those tools and blog posts and docs published for .NET 5. So keep an eye out, like on a daily basis, keep an eye out. This is very, very short, but a few things I want to note. What were the things? I already forgot the things I wanted to note. One of the things we learned from this though is like, okay, we understand there's a lot of frustration. What can we do better? And one of the things that was brought up was like, hey, while as we have kind of known that we're going to be coming in at around this time frame from .NET 5, we weren't as open. Like I think on these webcasts we said it was coming, but we weren't as clear on like some of the roadmap and even questions that I've seen pasted in chat, which is like, hey, what about the story with things like durable functions in .NET 5? And so one of the things that we've taken note of is like we want to be a lot more open about our roadmap and our plans. So coming up in the next few days, you'll also see a blog post get published that breaks down what is our roadmap for .NET releases. Like here's where .NET 5 is right now. What can we expect for .NET 6? What can we expect for .NET 7? We want to be super transparent and open and keep that conversation alive. It'll answer some of the other questions of like why we're doing what we're doing and so forth. So I appreciate the patience that many of you have had here. It's been frustrating for us as a team because we've wanted this out so far in advance, but we're so close now. So that's what I'll say. And we're learning, we're getting better. I really do not anticipate, and hopefully the blog post builds confidence in this. I really don't anticipate we're going to hit a gap between when we'll have bits ready to run in production and when a .NET release will come again. So, but yeah, same story. We kind of already. Oh, actually, I did want to distinguish though, just to set expectations. The .NET 5 Visual Studio templates, you'll be able to develop with Azure Functions in Visual Studio once that's released, but like having it integrated with the Project Create experience and the Project Publish experience is going to be coming in a future Visual Studio release. And so just, I wanted to set expectations that like when you see the .NET bits land and you'll see how to get started, you can still use it with Visual Studio, but some of the tooling improvements are going to be coming a little bit later than that day's timeline that I set. Is that fair, Anthony? Anything else you'd correct or add there?
Yep, that's totally fair.
Great. This one's coming imminent. Speaking about Key Vault, you reference a secret. You have the function behind a VNet. It's going to throw fits at you right now. That's going to be fixed very shortly in the next few weeks. You'll be able to, we'll just do it. We'll just do it right. I don't think you have to make any changes. I think we'll just be able to talk between a VNet. These two are both yours, Anthony. Anything more you want to add other than kind of what's on the slide?
Yeah, so very, very soon, we're going to declare GA of Node 14 on Azure Functions. That's currently in preview. I actually have a quick demo of that a little bit later on. And also durable functions in Python is going to GA very, very soon as well. So watch out for that in the coming days.
Yep, lots of stuff landing. There's a new UX that is landing very soon when you want to use app service authentication or EasyAuth. You'll often hear us talk about it on. So a new experience to help make some of that simpler, as well as some new capabilities that will be lighting up over the next few months. And this is just one that like we've done a bunch of stuff around networking. You can see the Key Vault stuff. You can now do private endpoints behind storage accounts. Just know that there's still a lot more happening here. I've got a few meetings even this afternoon of some of the plans to make it a little bit easier to use networking and premium functions, which includes Key Vault. It includes making it easier to do storage, making it easier to set up, making it easier to debug if something's not working. This networking stuff can get so complicated, and so we're trying to build a lot of experiences and tools to make it easier. And this is the last one on this slide, and then we'll answer a few questions. Anthony, you want to preview what's coming on static web apps?
Yeah, so we're working on a bunch of stuff on static web apps. So we've been pretty quiet for a little bit, but a lot of stuff is going to land in the next little bit. So currently, to kind of get any kind of insights into what your function app is doing, you have to manually add app insights. And we're going to make that easier with just a blade and a button, and you'll be able to add app insights. And not only that, that app insights key that you get, you can also use it in your front end app. So if you kind of plug into your front end app, you can get end-to-end tracing between your front end app and your function app. We're also working on a CLI for static web apps, and I'll be showing that in a little bit. And then a couple of much kind of a very kind of popular features that have been requested: Apex Domains and Azure DevOps. Apex Domains is probably coming. I don't really want to put a date on it, but pretty soon, in the next month or two. Right. Azure DevOps is a lot sooner. I'll actually show you a demo of that right after this. And we're also working on being able to natively build Jekyll apps. Currently, we require you to set up a separate build process beforehand, and then use the static web apps action to deploy it. But you'll be able to do that within the action.
That's
But actually,
great.
something else that just landed actually just today, I think. We added a new flag into our actions so that if you really wanted to build your thing yourself, and if you have like a super complicated script for building it, you can just have that, set up your GitHub Actions workflow to do that, and then just use our action to deploy. Before you kind of have to kind of mess around with like the build action and stuff like that. You no longer have to do that. There's going to be like one flag that says, I forgot what it's called, something like skip build or something like that, and we'll skip the build and we'll just deploy it.
That's cool. And Jekyll was that used to be what I was using for like my personal blog before I kind of just moved to like using Dev2 or whatever else. Jekyll's what you use for your site though, yeah, Anthony, if I remember right. Yeah,
Yep,
that'll
it
be
is.
super useful.
Yeah, I requested that feature just for myself, really.
Yeah. Yeah, that super useful. And it is like, yeah, it's great to see a lot of folks using static web apps. It is a kind of a newer thing, a newer pattern. I do see, and we'll answer a few questions before we switch to demos. Justin did call out though that he does not see PowerShell support for static web apps listed. Anthony, I don't know if you have any news for Justin.
I don't. I do see your GitHub issue. I see it every time I triage the GitHub issues. But the way that our service works, we actually manage a pool of function apps behind the scenes for you, so you don't have to worry about it. So so far we've been supporting languages that people tend to use a lot with static web apps. So most of it is JavaScript, and with Blazor a lot of .NET. And some folks are using Python. So those are the three ones, the three main languages that we're supporting right now. We are looking into other languages, but we need to see more demand for them first. But we are kind of working on other ways for you to actually bring your own function app to static web apps. So so we're still kind of trying to figure out how to exactly do that and when to light that up. But imagine being able to just stand up your own function app that's got PowerShell on it, maybe using another plan or choosing other things, and then just kind of attach it almost to a static web app. And so you still have the capabilities of static web apps like auth and routing, but you have full management and flexibility in how you build your function app.
I see. Great. Makes sense. Yeah. So will be options to do more flexible stuff sometime in the future. And in the meantime, we'll just wait for like React for PowerShell for somebody to create that in the community and have it take off like Blazor has. I would love to see it. I would love to see more people building static web apps exclusively in PowerShell with WebAssembly. I think that'd be pretty legit. Okay, let's answer a few questions. Since you grabbed that one, Anthony, I'll grab one here. I'm going to go in reverse chronological order, but I'll grab all the ones I've seen. So someone mentioned they just started using Azure App Config service, but they see a warning in the docs, which is like, hey, if you use some config values for your functions triggers, it may not scale. Is this being addressed? Yeah, or I guess there's nothing in the short term. I know why it's throwing an issue. So what's happening behind the scenes, and this is a pattern we've talked about a little bit before, is that we have a component in our platform that monitors your event source, like your trigger, and based on metrics from that trigger and what aspects of the trigger you care about, it makes decisions on how to scale your function. If you start swapping out metadata from your trigger with like values that get resolved from app config now knows what the values are, but we don't have a good way for our scale controller to know what those values are. And so the warning is just like, if you have something like the name of the queue in app config, you can pull it in and your app will know the queue, but our scale controller thing won't yet. We've solved this for Key Vault today. So when you use those Key Vault references, part of that feature work is that we've kind of wired up and so that they know how to talk to each other and it all works. We haven't yet done that for app config, but it's definitely a scenario that's of interest. I've met with the app config team a few times. I would love to see it. I just don't have an ETA. So that's the limitation. If you're using the Functions premium plan, there's a setting called runtime driven scaling. That's something that also might be moving to consumption sometime in the future. But for now, that's the case. So definitely a scenario will improve in the future. I just don't have an ETA. Okay, so this one's for you then, Anthony. Any news on using Azure Static Web Apps together with Azure DevOps?
Oh, well, I can show you a demo of it right now if you want.
Should we just do a I'm looking at the actually, so I'll hold that tease. I'm going to grab
Okay.
one more question before we switch over to some demos. Um, Someone was asking like, hey, I think I read somewhere that durable functions and durable entities won't be supported in the new .NET 5 worker. What's the plan there? What's going to be in the future of durable? I think this is called out in the roadmap blog that we're posting soon, but any like answer you want to give there?
Yeah, so I think it's going to take a little bit of time before it makes it into this out of process worker, because there is a bunch of extra work. Just like the kind of work that we've been doing with Python recently and JavaScript before, we kind of have to build like a special kind of shim almost between the out of process worker and the kind of stuff that the durable functions extension is doing in the host. So none of that's going to just light up magically. It's going to require a bit of work. So, so hopefully later on, we don't exactly have a timeline yet. It will make it into out of process, but our kind of guidance right now is if you want durable functions, I guess your only option right now is to stay on .NET Core 3.1, and because we're going to have a in process model or host for .NET 6, you'll be able to run durable functions in that. So the only kind of glitch right now is that you won't be able to do this with the .NET 5 stuff that's running out of process.
Yep, exactly right. We didn't want to gate, like we didn't want to slow down and not release .NET 5 until durable was there. It might take us a while to get everything wired up because it, like to Anthony's point, it takes this extra shim layer we have to build, but it is something that at the very least will absolutely be available for .NET 6 and the .NET 6 preview that will be coming out in a few months, but maybe even sometime later for 5. So still up in the air, but great question. Anthony, I got to stop talking because you mentioned demos, and now everyone in the chat, as you may see, is just saying like, give us the demos. We want the Anthony demos. So I'm going to turn it over to you to share with folks what you've come prepared with. And then I've got a few other questions I know that came earlier in the webcast. I'll keep an eye on chat as well, and we'll grab some questions here in a bit too.
All right, sounds good. I will. The hardest part is always sharing my screen.
That's okay. All right.
Do we see a screen?
We can see your Azure Create Blade with your tabs on the left, like a real champ.
Yeah, shout out to Chris Gillum. I don't know if he's in the chat, but he's the one that told me about the side tabs. I can't live without them now. For some reason,
I saw it tweeted, but I've been too afraid to enable it. Maybe I'll enable it for a day and see if it hooks me.
No, it's great. Like, 'cause if you like, I just tend to have a bunch of tabs up top, and they just get skinnier and skinnier and skinnier. And I don't really do anything with them. But for some reason, as the tabs build up, as it gets closer to the bottom, I'm actually, for some reason, I just feel like I have to clean them up. So, and it's great. So if I need to find something quickly, I can always see the full title. I don't have to like mouse over each one of them. It's amazing. You should do it. You should all do it.
That was the first demo. Great first demo.
That's right, and that's it. That's all the demos I have. But no, like so one of the questions that have already come up in the chat and have come up quite often is when is static web apps going to support Azure DevOps? So coming out of the gate, we've had support for GitHub Actions. And so it's taken us a little while to actually get support into Azure DevOps, but it won't be much longer. Actually, if you check your kind of Azure DevOps kind of tenant today, I think like we're like halfway rolled out the task that we kind of built for static web apps. So you might actually see the static web apps task there. I guess the other half is how do you use it? So I'm going to kind of show you some of the UI stuff that's going to be lighting up in the next few weeks. That is going to allow you to use it. And if you really, really want to use it before the UI gets rolled out, I will try to post some instructions in our GitHub issues. GitHub issue number 5 is it's the one that's for Azure DevOps. I will update that with some CLI instructions on how you would set up Azure DevOps. If you really want to.
I know we've said this before, but whenever a product manager says the number for the GitHub issue, you know it's one that they have spent a long time having to deal with.
Yeah.
Issue number 5.
Yeah. Yeah, just like 1131 was the ASCII art one. And then issue 2222 is the one that was created by none other than Jeff Holland on how do we re-enable ASCII art.
Oh no. Oh
Yeah.
boy. Okay.
And they're great. Like I use them for all my passwords now. It's fine. So it's not, it's just a source of nightmares. They are actually useful in my life. Maybe not the number 5. That one's a little easier to guess. But anyway, I think we're supposed to show it. Show some kind of a demo.
You just slaughtered me on a live stream. Like I am dead right now. I just should turn off my camera.
Well, I thought that's what we're supposed to do on the webcast. Isn't that what like Mario did as well?
People are, yeah. Well, yeah, it's true. Yeah, put me on blast. That was amazing.
Yeah,
someone should clip that last minute and a half. Well done. All right.
All right. So now we have a new radio button here. So you can actually opt out of creating your Azure DevOps. Creating your static web apps using GitHub Actions.
And this is in prod today, like this toggle?
No, it's hidden behind a feature flag right now.
Okay, yeah.
And we're still kind of, you'll kind of see that we're still kind of doing some fit and finish stuff on here. But very soon you'll see this. So once you create it, you can just click, create now. You will kind of get a static web app that is, do I have one? Yeah. That looks like this. So like this is some stuff that we have to clean up here. But you'll be able to grab this management token, and you can use that management token to set up your Azure DevOps. So I'll kind of quickly show you what that looks like in Azure DevOps. So we're in here. We have I'll show you the other. So basically your goal is to set up this pipelines YAML thing. And this is really all you need to do. Here, I don't know if this enlarging thing is working.
I can see the square, but it doesn't actually show it on Teams, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Never mind then. Let me turn that off, and I'll just try to make that a little bit bigger here. So these are the paths and the locations and stuff. Super easy to use, and then I'll show you kind of what it looks like when it runs. I won't actually run it, but what you'll see is that it's basically our GitHub action, the same container that we use. Is actually running in here. So the same capabilities about how we build your app and all that stuff. You'll get within Azure DevOps. Currently, it's a little bit manual on how you set it up, as well as we're still trying to figure out how we can do the, like the pull request environments and stuff like that. We don't quite have the same hooks as we do in GitHub Actions, so we need to kind of figure out how to make that really work. But if you want to deploy from your Azure DevOps repo, you should be able to do that super soon.
That's awesome. That's super clear. Yeah, it looks slick. And the deployment YAML, I wasn't sure what it was going to look like when you opened it, but it's super simple, single step, like take the static web app, deploy it. That's awesome. That's great.
Yep, cool.
And the one question on this one before we move to the next one that just popped in, will the tasks be listed in the classic editor, or will they only be available in kind of the newer YAML stuff?
It's a good question. Let's find out.
I
think it's there. Like I've been looking for it for a while,
one.
and my tenant has not had it. But that doesn't mean that it's not there. It just means it hasn't been rolled out to me yet. But let's try this out. I know all these steps because like literally every day I go and check it.
I can tell.
Let's see if it's here. Static. Oh, look, it's there now. So this is my custom one, but like it's there now. It's a real one.
Wow.
So I'm in the ring 3 or whatever that's currently rolled out to.
Yep. Okay. Another one. It looks like this feature's got a lot of interest. If you're using a custom agent installed on-prem, is there anything additional you would need to install in order for this to work? I don't know if you know that.
No, I don't think so. I think it needs to run on an agent that has Docker on it because we're running a Docker image. So you can run other things that use Docker. So probably an Ubuntu agent, but it might actually work with Windows as well if you have Linux containers on Windows configured. I don't know how that works anymore.
I think you're right. And can I just say how nice it is that you're on this webcast? This is exactly the type of stuff that I'd be saying. Maybe Anthony on the chat can answer that. So yeah, that makes sense. Super great. All right. Ooh,
okay.
Demo 2.
Demo 2. Okay. So now we're going to talk about how you run static web apps locally. So typically your local development experience is not too bad. Especially if you just have have a front end, then you just kind of use your React app server or your Blazor dev server, just npm start or .NET watch run or something like that, and your thing starts up and it's fine. But then you add a function app, and now you have to start two things at once, and you have to set up cores on your function app. A lot of the stuff that you get in the cloud, like authentication and routing, you kind of cannot really replicate that locally. So it becomes really hard to kind of test your static web apps without deploying it. So in the next few weeks, it's actually available now on npm. We have a CLI that we're working on, and I have to really call out that a couple of things. One is it's still very much in the early days. It's going to take us a couple more weeks before it's in a shape that we can actually announce that it's going to be ready. But I'll be showing you a quick demo of that of it anyway. And then also a shout out to Wasim and Aaron Powell on our cloud advocacy team, who actually have been working on this emulator, and we just adopted it into the product. It's so great. So huge thanks to those folks. But I'm just going to quickly kind of show you how it works. So right now I have a Blazor app, and it's pre-built, but you can actually use it with the Blazor dev server as well if you wanted to, and also have an API app, which is my function app. Like I was saying before, typically in the past you have to kind of start the two things separately, and then try to figure out how they work together. You no longer have to do this with the static web apps emulator, and I'll try to make this as big as I can. It's got a bunch of commands, but start is one of them. So you can say static web app start, and then basically give it the folder where your static assets are, and it'll serve it. You can also take a URL if you happen to have the React app server or React dev server started. You can just pass the URL there, and I can tell it where my API app is, which is an API. So when I run that, I start this stuff locally. We're waiting, and then it starts up. And then I can go to localhost 4280. I think I might have some caching issue here. Is it going to work? Okay, there's my Blazor app. All right, so this is a pretty standard Blazor app. It works, nothing too exciting. But you can see here I have a login button. Before I kind of had to have almost like an if statement in my Blazor app, so that it says if local, do this, do that.
Yeah.
I no longer have to do this. If I click on that, we actually serve you up a page. You can pretend to be anybody you want. You can give it any kind of roles, and then you can log in. So now I'm logged into my Blazor app, and you can see that all the stuff that the app is doing, that it would be doing in the cloud to actually get my identity, it's actually working. You can see
that's really cool.
Yeah, and it lights up the extra path. It's actually making the call to Azure Functions, and I can log out. Okay,
that's very cool.
Yeah,
that's great. And Daniel called out too, I've seen the .NET tie tool, which is really good for spinning up multiple .NET processes for microservice development. Definitely a lot of similarities here, and this one's really optimized and specialized for building these static web apps. That's awesome. The auth piece I did not know about. I'm blown away with the work there, and huge shout out as well to the cloud advocates and others who helped. That's slick.
Yeah, but there's more. So here's a React app now. So it's in my front end folder. It's just a React app, and also an Azure Function app. And I've set up some launch config here, so that I can now go and say start. And what it's going to do is it's going to start my React dev server. It's going a little bit slower on Teams, but it's going to start my React dev server. It's going to start my function app. It's going to start the emulator. It's going to start Edge. I don't know what else it's going to start. It's going to start a bunch of stuff. And then it's going to connect the debugger to both the function app, and if I'm lucky, Edge is going to start up somewhere. Oh no, what happened?
It got sad about Edge. It said Edge didn't respond.
Okay, we're going to do this again. Because it's
it gave cool. Edge 10 seconds, and then it gave up on it, it looked like.
Yeah. I guess I should have tried out this demo while I'm on Teams.
That's okay.
Because it's slowing everything down.
I see.
I don't think it's just Teams. I shouldn't say that. It's screen share.
It's something else. It's something else not Microsoft created that's slowing it down.
Yeah, definitely not. Yeah.
Okay, the timer started. We got 10 seconds before it
There we
gives.
go.
Oh, there it
Live,
is.
what's up? So I'll hide this. So I have this little tiny screen here. Actually, on my other screen, the actual browser is there as well. So I have everything up on my screen at once, and I can go and click this little click me button. And you can see that it hits my breakpoint in my React app.
Mm,
And then I can say go. And it hits my breakpoint in my function app. And that's great. And then you can also
yep.
do things like live reloading. So if I can actually go and change like the background here and go save, you can see instantly it changes. So you can get a really tight kind of inner loop now with static web apps locally on your computer.
Very slick. Very slick.
All right. Any questions there? I have like another 5-minute thing with durable functions and Node 14 and
I'm
stuff.
sure that you have teased that the chat's just going to turn into a bunch of people saying, give us the durable functions thing in Node 14. No questions on this one. Maybe the one that was slightly related, because I was even thinking this too when you switch to React. Like, obviously, there's so much stuff happening in JavaScript and Node.js. Tom was asking earlier, like, anything planned around more tutorials around Node.js and tutorials. This is broader, I imagine, than just static web apps, but any resources or stuff that you could flag to folks who are like, oh, wow, I see these modern web frameworks. I see a lot of stuff happening in Node. Maybe I'm interested in serverless. I don't know if anything off the top of your head comes of like, I don't know if we have Learn modules, whatever else that you'd recommend.
Yeah, we definitely have Learn modules for static web apps, but and with all the different frameworks. But I'm trying to think about whether there are any that are specific to like how do you get started on a framework. Yeah, I can't think of anything. I can plug, Brian Holt's, courses on front end masters. But other than that, I kind of have to think about that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's stuff too. I was even chatting with Burke Holland today, who's one of our advocates, and he said that they're working on a bunch of Node content. So, and a lot of that does like a lot of the docs and stuff will talk about like here's how it can work in functions too. So, speaking of Node, here you go, Anthony. We're ready for demo 3.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
and
for
one
yep.
question though from Daniel: does
Okay.
the debugging work in C# as well? Like, would you have been able to set a breakpoint for your Blazor thing and have it hit that C# breakpoint?
Yeah, it doesn't quite do it as well, so I'm still trying to figure out how that works. But yeah, like I do have it set up here, and it kind of works half the time. So I
Mm.
chose the one that I thought was more
Works all the time.
reliable to show, but no. And also the hope is that we can get our VS Code extension to actually help you set up that config, so you don't have to write out the 100 lines of JSON to make this happen.
Mm. And to give teams a little bit of credit, there was a question of like, hey, Anthony, what's the camera you're using that when you move your head back and forth, it's tracking you? I don't know if you see that. It's not his
I don't see
camera.
that.
That is Microsoft Teams that is making sure that in this presenter mode where he's tied up in that tiny little corner, when his head moves, it's making sure that he stays around. So go Microsoft Teams. Yes.
All right.
The machine learning bytes on your computer are just weeping right now as you try to test the limits of face tracking.
Yeah, the fan is going pretty hard. All right, so the last one I want to show you is we kind of called out earlier that Node 14 is going to GA soon, and there's some new stuff that's coming out with Node 14, even just in the language itself. To be honest, it's starting to look a lot like more and more like C# now. So you can have like the two question mark kind of thing, or the question mark dot, and the reason I call it those things is because I never remember the actual names for them. But it allows you to kind of test for null and all that stuff. And, you don't have to check for like, does my request exist? Does my request.body exist? The request.body.this exist? You can just go like question mark dot, just like you do in C#. So it's cool. But another thing that we are introducing in our Node 14 support, and this will be in preview because it's currently still marked as experimental in Node 14, is support for ECMAScript modules. So what you will see is, if I just open up one of these functions, is that you can see that we're using a slightly different extension name, MJS. And then when you do that, our node worker will know that you're using ECMAScript modules. And you can see that instead of using require, you can use imports and stuff like that. So So this is kind of like the future for Node. It's gonna be basically Node's standard module system going forward. It's still fairly new, as I kind of said, but we're offering preview support for it, so that we can actually get some feedback on what people are doing with it and whether or not it's actually working for them. So I actually have an app here that's durable functions that I kind of converted entirely to use the Node 14 features as well as ES modules. And I kind of just want to show this. It's actually a pretty cool demo, if it works. Is that I always kind of wondered, like, can I build some tests? So like here's a bunch of tests here. It's using, I think this thing is using Puppeteer, but I could use Playwright as well. Can I build a bunch of tests that kind of look like Jest or Mocha or any of those test frameworks? But instead of actually running it locally on my machine, can I use the fan-out, fan-in capabilities of durable functions and actually run this in the cloud? So I kind of built this thing like out there. So you can actually just write these files that looks exactly like a Jest or a Mocha file. And but instead, it's going to run in the cloud. So the code isn't on GitHub. Just go to my GitHub whatever account or repo to grab it. But I'll just quickly show you the demo of this running in the cloud. So let me open it up. And off screen here, I'm going to kick it off. It might take a little time for it to kind of just start scheduling it. But of course, it was built using Signar, as all my demos do. So as the tests get run and as we scale out, we should actually see stuff up here on the screen. I'm actually a little bit worried now that nothing is happening. I think I clicked the button.
And what should be happening behind the scenes is like you've written a bunch of tiny tests that are like, go to this page. Oh yeah, like go to this page and validate some stuff. It's running these tests and like actually looking at the pages through functions that are running in Azure Functions. And you've built this cool little framework that more or less knows how to like parse your test file. And now, as it's scaling out and running all these tests on all these web pages, as you DDoS our doc site live on our live stream. No, this is unreal. This is very cool. And you can see like the snapshot. I always love that. Again, I was talking to Burke today about some JavaScript stuff, and I was like, I love that you see like these rendered web pages in these headless browsers. This is slick.
So this also works with, like I think we talked about supporting headless Chromium in our Linux consumption. That's what is running on right now. So this is a demo that kind of brings it all together.
Wow, this is cool, Anthony. I'm glad you showed this.
Yeah.
One question I had from earlier, and you're getting applause as always when you steal the show here on these webcasts. If you want to be using the new module format with the imports and Node 14, you mentioned we're going to do a preview. Do people do anything if they want to start using it, or is it just like when we release the GA bits, you can start to do this, and that capability is just a preview capability?
Actually, there's only two things you need to do. One is you need to rename the file. So I just created just a regular Azure function file here. Just rename it to MJS. And then the other thing is you actually have to do no work. VS Code has a handy little thing here that says convert to ES6 module. You just click that and it just does it.
That's great.
So nothing else you need to do.
Perfect. Great. Awesome. As always, Anthony, I appreciate it. I learned something. I really like that web demo. I'm also just curious, like, who all have you shown that to yet? Because I imagine there's a lot of teams who would love to see this type of tool to go do those validation tests.
This is the first time I've shown it to anybody, so
wow.
You're the first.
Congratulations, everyone. Okay, if you want to stop sharing, I will switch back to our camera feed and we'll wrap up with a few last questions. We only have 2, so if anyone else has any other questions before we wrap up for the day. This was one that came in earlier. I'll grab this one, and then the next one, I'm going to read both these kind of live. Okay, our retry policies. Oh, I got to switch back over here. My face is floating over there. Welcome back. Hi, everyone. Are retry policies in preview applicable to timer-triggered functions as they were not supported earlier? I don't think we've done any work on the timer trigger one. I'm even trying to think. I don't quite know what would prevent that. So I need to check into that, actually. If there's a GitHub issue or something, that'd be great. And I realize folks can't paste a link, so maybe ping me on Twitter. But I'll make a note of that because I have been tracking some of the work that we're doing to bring retry policies to general availability here in the next few months. And I'd be curious to know if this is something that we could also include. And it makes sense. You might want to retry those executions too. So I don't know, but I'll find out. Oh, okay. And then the last question I see, unless more pop in, when I'm going to read this. It's maybe I don't know this one as well. I think it was a question about like what's the difference between the Azure tables for table storage or Cosmos DB table SDKs. We're definitely not experts in those. I know that like there is a way in like the newer SDKs to use Azure tables through the Cosmos SDK, but I don't know on that one. Anthony, I don't know if you know anything else either.
I think that's all I know as well.
Fine. We'll end with a question I didn't know. I guess two I didn't know because the retry policy too. I guess here's one because there is someone asking for the retry policy function samples and stuff. I'll paste the doc where you can see the retry policy preview. I don't know if it goes to a sample. I'm sure I probably have a sample somewhere, but anyway, okay. So we've got a few more questions, and then once these questions ends, we'll probably just wrap it up. Premium consumption Linux app cannot be deployed to the same resource group. Yeah, this is a limitation. I'm really hoping we end up finally squashing in the next few months. There's this weird behavior. It's a very legacy quirk from like the early days of Azure that we've just never really ripped out, where when you deploy anything into like the app service platform, we have a bunch of like pools of resources that we allocate, and we have a mapping between resource group and that pool of resources. We don't really need it anymore. It's this thing. It takes a lot of effort to rip out. One of the reasons that it's not kind of been prioritized is like you can get around it easily enough by just deploying things in a different resource group. But you are right. There are limitations, like you can't have a Linux function and a Windows function in the same resource group. They have to be in separate resource groups. You can't have a Linux premium function and a Linux consumption function in the same resource group. You have to have two separate resource groups. So the mitigation is easy enough. Just create a unique resource group for at least the plan. Like one way that I've done this too is sometimes I'll create a resource group just for the plan, but I still create my functions in the same resource group. That's okay. But they can't share the same resource group. It's weird. I hope that it's one of those things that like finally bubbles up to the top of a backlog. I imagine it will. I think 2021 truly might be the year, but I don't know. So, okay, great. And it looks like there's a bunch of folks who are helping answer the Azure table stuff. So thank you, Justin, in chat for helping chime in there too, and Mark as well. Okay, great. Anything else we want to say, Anthony, before we wrap up for the month, I guess, though we might be having another one of these this month because I want to do these monthly, and we didn't do one in February. We almost did. It's like the last bit of February. And before we finished, we got the award, 100 messages today on Restream Chat. Way to go, chat. Proud of you. Took us 53 minutes, but we got there. Anthony, any final thoughts?
Nope, that's it. I'm just glad most of the demos worked.
Yeah, they worked great. What do you mean? Everything you got working eventually, right?
Yeah.
It's the eventually part you didn't like.
But not really, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm going to be fancy here and fade up the music now as we see you all later. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining. Anthony, you can't hear it. I apologize. See you, everyone. We'll talk to you next month.